Dasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityananda Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharnine Nirvishesha Shanyavani Vasya Deshatarine Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Goda Bhaktarinda Goda Bhaktarinda Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare
Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Namaste Saraswati Devi Om Agyanatavinanda Sahajana Jana Salakaya Saksasamilatam Jaina Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Caitanya Manabhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapandantikam Vansha Kalpatrubhascha Kripasinubhayavacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Mahaprabhu continues speaking about Vedanta to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So far he's explained faults not in Vedanta but in the impersonalistic Mayavadi interpretation of Vedanta as described by Sripad Shankaracharya, especially in his commentary on Vedanta known as Sharirak Bhashya. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has explained to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Vedanta philosophy according to his understanding, which was the understanding of Sri Shankaracharya. And Mahaprabhu, as we all remember very carefully, he didn't say anything for perhaps 7 days as he heard and heard and heard and heard and heard. And he didn't respond at all. He didn't indicate that he understood what was being said or he had any questions. He just sat and listened. So eventually Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya asked him, inquired from him, do you understand or you don't understand? You don't ask any questions, you just sit and listen? So Mahaprabhu answered very, very gently but strongly, I do understand Vedanta, but I don't understand what your interpretations of Vedanta. Vedanta itself is like the sun. The sun doesn't need any other illumination to reveal itself. It is Swayam Jyoti. It is self-illuminating. But your interpretations of Vedanta, like clouds that cover the sun, and they obscure or cover the actual self-evident meaning of Vedanta. So then he started explaining some of the faults in the explanation that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya on behalf of Sripad Shankaracharya had been giving. And the first of which was that the impersonal, that the absolute truth is impersonal. It has no form, no qualities, and everything is part of that. That's what absolute truth means. It's all-inclusive. But the explanation of Shankaracharya is that everything is part of it, and clearly everything is part of it, but that absolute truth itself has no qualities. So that brings up a problem. If the absolute truth doesn't have any qualities, we look at the material world and it has so many qualities. What quality can you see in the material world? What comes to your mind as you look around? What's the first quality you see of the material world?
Kindness.
Kindness. Okay. It's very exalted vision. I was thinking of something simple like green or hard or soft, but what other qualities? What quality do you see?
It's the environment.
Okay, name something specific.
Sky.
Sky, okay. If there's a sky, raise your hand if you don't think there's a sky. Even this early in the morning on a Sunday, Mohan thinks there's a sky. Okay, you're next. What qualities do you see?
The roof is like
Okay, try and describe it.
Rough, spiky.
Yeah, oh, great. With the cobwebs every now and then, that if anyone is in an industrious mood, right after the class, they can take it upon themselves to remove the cobwebs. One more. What's it? Huh?
Light.
It's light, and a light bulb. So how do the impersonalists deal with the fact that everyone sees the world with qualities, and they say the absolute truth doesn't have any qualities? So how do they deal with that? They say their philosophy is called Vivartavad, which means you see this, but it's not actually there. It's an illusion. Now, that's a difficult philosophy to prove. So they use word jugglery and philosophical tricks to prove it. Now, why is it? One of the reasons why it's difficult to prove is that what would you say if you're going to prove that the world is illusion? What facilities do you have to prove it? How will you prove it? What will you need to prove it? Say if you wanted to prove it. What would you use to prove it? Yeah.
Intelligence.
Your intelligence. What else? Arguments. And your perceptions. So if you say everything is illusion, your intelligence and your arguments and your mind and your perceptions are also illusion. So how could you use something that's completely illusory to prove anything? Why trust it? It's an illusion. So they're caught in with no other trap, that particular trap. So the Vaishnava philosophy, as Mahaprabhu explains, is the material world isn't illusion, it's real. The sky is real, the light is real, this amazing roof above our heads is real, but it is temporary. And what's the difference between illusion and temporary? If you think if you think a rope that's coiled outside at dusk on your veranda is a snake, you're wrong. But it's not a snake. So that's the example that the Mayavadis use. But a snake's illusion or a rope's illusion, there's no such thing as ropes, there's no such thing as snakes. No, it's mistaking one thing for another. That's the fault. It's not that ropes don't exist and snakes don't exist, but your perception of this rope as a snake is wrong. So the whole thing isn't illusion, but your mistake is a temporary mistaking one thing for another. So when we mistake the temporary material world for something eternal, that's the illusion. But it doesn't mean that the material world itself is an illusion. Illusion means it has no existence. What's an example of something that has no existence? Which is very hard to answer. Can we even think of something that hasn't? Yes, Kat, this challenged you, yes?
A living entity, a minded living entity is a God, Supreme God.
Okay, that's a mistake. But are the concepts living entity and God illusion? Not necessarily. We can't even think of something that doesn't exist. Illusion means it doesn't exist. Can you think of something that doesn't exist? Because you can't think of it because it doesn't exist. Even Avi can't think of something. Probably your boss in the mines can think of something that doesn't exist and probably sell it also.
Happiness.
But happiness. But does happiness exist?
It does, but not in my side.
Only, what are those called? What are the little houses called?
Dongas.
Dungars.
Dongas.
Do they exist?
Yes.
Yes, unfortunately, maybe. Yes.
One argument that we can also add is that there are certain people who have 3 kinds of cones in their eyes. Most
3 kinds of cones.
cones.
Yes.
No, most of us have 3 kinds. And
Cones means the way, the mechanism by which the eye perceives scent. Yes, color.
color. And very rare human beings have 4
Yes.
cones in them. So their perception of color is much more than what we have. And so when they look out at the world, they see it so much more colorful, but we cannot even perceive the colors that they are perceiving because we can't. So it exists, but that which we can't perceive, we cannot
We
say it
can.
doesn't exist.
Yeah. But also that's a tricky one in the sense that everything that we can conceive of, because we can conceive of it, doesn't mean that it exists.
Doesn't mean
It exists. Like the examples given up. You can conceive of a horse and you conceive of an egg, but you can't conceive, and you can conceive of a horse's egg, but it doesn't exist. Have you ever seen a horse's egg? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever seen a horse?
Yeah.
Where?
Near the temple, the new temple.
Okay. Do you know there are horses really near here too? Did you know that? Would you like to see them?
Sure.
Can you take him? Sometime. Have you ever seen a kangaroo?
Yeah.
Did you ever wonder what's in the kangaroo's pouch?
Yeah.
Want to find out?
Okay.
Okay, take him. Show him. Giving you a lot of assignments, homework assignments. But there are other faults in the Mayavad philosophy too. When they say that the absolute truth, based on the Shastra of Vedanta Sutra, has, and their word jugglery, has no qualities, that means also it has no energies. But other Shastra, other scriptures, show that the absolute truth does have energies. So it contradicts, if you take that viewpoint, it contradicts Shastra. So those were the main points that Mahaprabhu made, but he also made some others, and he's going to continue to make more. The theory of illusion, that's Vavartavad, can be applied only when the living entity identifies himself with the body. In other words, that's an illusory identification, but the body and the living entity do exist. As far as the cosmic manifestation is concerned, the universe, they say that the universe doesn't exist. It just appears to exist. It's only an illusion. It cannot be called false, although it certainly is temporary. Now now Mahaprabhu will start speaking about a second fault, which is it is less philosophical, but it is based on Shastra. The transcendental vibration, Omkar, is the sound form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What does that mean? It is the sound form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Omkar is the sound form. What does that mean? Mohan?
If it's an illusion because your senses are an illusion, then that means the sound form isn't real.
Yes, right. But Mahaprabhu was making a positive statement that the vibration Omkar, Om, is the sound form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means the Supreme Lord, Krishna, he has a form that we can see with our eyes, but also he has a form that we can hear with our ears. He has many names. So Omkar, though, is one of the Vedic sound forms of the Lord. The Lord is there. He's actually present, just like when you see a deity of Krishna. He's actually there, but in the form of elements, physical elements. So Krishna is actually there in the sound of Om, because Om means Radha, Krishna, and the living entity. Those are the different basic elements of the sound vibration Om. So that means it's quite amazing if you think about it. And when we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, that's Krishna is actually there in sound. And that means that any time you want to be in Krishna's presence, all you have to do is utter or say the transcendental sound of Krishna's holy name or Omkar. Now, what is the benefit of that? That's why we say that the holy names are even more merciful, they're the most merciful forms of the Lord, because at any time, in any place, any time you want to be in the Lord's presence, when the deities are open, then you could be, and if you're nearby, you could be in the presence of the deities. But if the doors are closed or the temple is closed or you're far away, you can't be in the presence of the deity. But the holy names are still more merciful. That any time you want, you can be in the presence of the holy names. What verse of Mahaprabhu's does he speak about this? Nam Nam Buhuda Neva Sarva Shakti. Sarva Shakti, all potencies are there in the holy name. Go ahead. So, and there's no hard and fast rules. You have to only do it at this time. You have to be in this state of purity, this, that. There's no hard and fast rules. It's hard to see. So your holy names are so merciful that they give us such a facility to be with them. Dudaiva means what? Unfortunate as I am. Even though the door is always open, unfortunate as I am, I have no attraction. But that doesn't mean that everyone in existence has the same misfortune and unfortunateness that I have. There are great souls who, the ones that come to my mind were the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. They would chant practically 24 hours a day, not fully. They slept just a little bit most of the time, an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. They practically didn't take time for eating. Raghunath Das Goswami used to eat one little leaf cup of buttermilk. When you turn milk into butter, the ghee comes, and then also there's milk that comes from that, a kind of buttermilk that's very good for digestion. So he would just drink one leaf cup of that every day or two. And he would just chant. He would chant maybe 128 rounds a day and speak about Krishna, and he would bow down. That means so many times every day, and offering respects to different places in Vrindavan. He would write sometimes books, prayers, still full of energy, because he was getting his energy, his life, from a different platform than the material platform, in contact with the spiritual platform. continuously. He, the soul, was in contact with the source of energy and life, his relationship with Krishna continuously. And he was in ecstasy continuously, because you'd have to be in ecstasy to neglect the material platform. Your taste would have to be so strongly on that side that the material tastes and pleasures, even riding a bicycle, there's higher tastes and pleasures than these things. It's hard to conceive of sometimes. That was a joke, Mohan. Do you like to ride your bicycle?
I don't like to, but it's not bad, it's just I'm riding a bike.
Yeah. But there are pleasures available that make every material pleasure completely insignificant. So the Goswamis were tutravat. They could give up the material position, being ministers and being the wealthiest of persons, as if it was completely insignificant, because their desire and their tasting of the spiritual platform, their relationship with Sri Radha and Krishna and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was so deep and so real, completely real to them. And this world was seen like a dream, like a temporary dream that they were very good at dealing with. Not that it was a dream and they didn't care about it, because they saw it as it belongs to Krishna. They saw it as part of the absolute truth, not as illusion. So therefore they were very careful in their dealings with it. But yet they didn't get trapped in the illusion that they thought, this is my home and this is where I can find my respite and my pleasure. They didn't get trapped in that, because they saw themselves, there's an incompatibility between the soul, which is eternal, and the material world, which is always shifting and temporary. And because we tried to, I heard Prabhupada speak on this point this morning, that because we tried to find our pleasures in this incompatible situation between the eternal soul and the temporary material world, and we're looking for pleasure here while it's incompatible, then the result is anxiety, kunta, anxiety. And in the spiritual world, the eternal spiritual soul, the eternal soul is active in its true nature on the spiritual realm, and therefore it is Vaikuntha, there is no anxiety. Everyone think of what the greatest anxiety in your life is right now. I mean, I'm not going to ask you to say what it is, but think of what it is. Maybe I'll only ask you. Did you hear what I asked, my question?
The biggest anxiety in your life.
Can you think of what it is? I'm not going to ask you what it is, but can you think of what it is?
What's anxiety?
Trying to figure out what I'm talking about is my greatest anxiety. Anxiety, what is anxiety, Linda?
Worry, fear, dread, tension.
Yes, it's different degrees. Worried, the thing that you're worried about most. Is that in your mind? Can you put that in your mind?
Don't have it.
Don't have any. You're in Vaikuntha. Either that or asleep. One of the two. Do you have some? And you don't have any anxieties, I know. Why don't you have any anxiety and worries?
Because I don't really care about them.
Because why?
I don't really care about them.
Really? Do you care about eating?
No.
No. How about if you didn't have any food? Would you care about eating?
A bit. Well, I don't really eat.
How about putting clothes on your body? Would you care about that?
I guess.
Yeah. And how about having a place, how about if you didn't have any place to sleep at night? Life could be rough because it's quite cold out there, right?
Yeah.
So the reason why you're not in anxiety is because you're being taken care of.
Yeah.
All your needs are being taken care of. So that's how, and I heard Prabhupada speak about this point this morning as well. That's why a devotee, and how a devotee, he can think only about, he thinks only about serving Krishna. And he doesn't have the thought, well, if I'm thinking about serving Krishna, who's going to take care of me? He's thinking about taking care of Krishna and pleasing Krishna. He can be engaged 24 hours a day, as Prabhupada would say. And who's going to take care of him is Krishna. And it's not exactly on his mind. And Krishna takes care of him. So he, like a young boy who's being taken care of very well, even though he doesn't quite conscious of it. Where did you get that bear suit that you're wearing?
He bought it.
Okay. So you don't have to worry about keeping warm when you go outside in the cold. Why did you put it on this morning, the bear suit?
Because it's cold.
Yeah. So you're being provided for, yes? So, okay, now I'm going to get really, really sorry for this. If a person is being provided for continuously, with his bear suit, with his food, the whole thing. But your suit doesn't have ears on it, though, on the hood. Does it? I don't think so. I think Sahastra's does.
Yeah.
Oh, you do have ears. But it doesn't have proper ears. No. Now, if someone's always providing things for you, when you're young, you don't even notice. You take it for granted. But as soon as you become a little bit, shall I say, intelligent, how should you think about the person who's providing things for you?
Be thankful.
Yeah. Grateful. And what form should that take? You've helped me so much. You've provided for me so much when I didn't have the capacity to provide for myself. So therefore, now that I'm more old and more intelligent and more sensitive and more strong, I should help you.
Help them back.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Yeah. So that's why not only do children think like that when they grow up, or they that's why the devotee, he sees, he is granted the vision that Krishna has been helping him his whole life, but he's been asleep to that fact. So when he's a little bit mature, he thinks in a different way. Instead of, oh, he's been helping me and now I can just help myself. I'm older and more intelligent and more strong and more wealthy. I can help myself right now. No, he thinks that, let me do something for Krishna. How can I serve Krishna? And that's the meditation of a devotee. And that explains Prabhupada's mood, continuous mood. Sometimes that serving mood was like a lion, and sometimes it was very, very gentle. When he was out chastising people or whatever, he was like a lion when he was giving lectures. But when he was with the devotees, he was very gentle, like a lamb. But all of it, both the lion and the gentle was for, the gentle lamb was for Krishna's pleasure, because that was the deepest, his heart was melted in that consciousness of service, devotional service. And that's the natural consciousness of a living entity. Not everything is illusion. the coat that Krishna has given me, the sunshine, the air, the water, the abilities that I have, the strength I have, whatever little intelligence I have, whatever health I have, not to think it's all illusion, because if it's all illusion, then there's no question of being grateful. Otherwise, the gratefulness would be illusory also. And there would be no question of bhakti. There would be no question of service, because nothing exists, practically speaking. And you are that one. So it is a very peculiar philosophy. Very peculiar philosophy. So the devotee, he sees everything, Ishtadeva Sporti, as a manifestation of his Lord, and he just sees it. This is meant for Krishna in this way, and this is meant for Krishna in this way. If I had this, if Krishna would give me that, I would use it in his service in this way. And then if I see everything like that, again the question may come, well, who's going to take care of me? And the answer for a devotee is, that's not my concern, but actually speaking, it's Krishna's concern. The devotee doesn't want Krishna to give him everything. It's love. But Krishna is thinking, oh, look at this person, this soul is serving me in such a sincere way. How could I neglect him? How could I neglect him? Now it's a little bit tangential from the topic, but we got there quite naturally. So Omkar is the sound form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is available at any time we want, but unfortunate as we are, we get caught by illusion. And we don't have that desire to be with Krishna. And all Vedic knowledge and this cosmic manifestation are produced from this sound representation of the Supreme Lord. I'll read Prabhupada's short purport here. Omkar is the representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in sound. The form of his holy name is accepted as the transcendental vibration, Mahavakya, by virtue of which the temporary material manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Omkara, has come into being. The material manifestation has come into being through Krishna. If one takes shelter of the sound representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Omkar, he can realize his constitutional natural identity and engage in devotional service, even though in conditioned life. Even though we are not perfect and pure, our consciousness is not perfect and pure, and even though we're not perfectly seeing everything in relationship to Krishna, as Krishna's, but still, even if we have that intention to please Krishna, if we have some intention, even though I'd like to do it, I want to do it, I should do it, but I'm not so pure, still we can engage in devotional service. That's called sadhana bhakti, practice. So there's what's called a conditional clause in there. If I want to. If I want to. Even the desire is glorious, but the desire of sincere will manifest itself into some attempt at activity and service. The subsidiary vibration, Tvat Tamasi, you are the same, is meant for the understanding of the living entity. That we are not different from the Lord. But the principal vibration is Omkar. Not caring for Omkar, Shankaracharya has stressed the vibration Tat Tvamasi. Thus, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu criticized Shankaracharya's Sharirakbhasya as imaginary, and he pointed out hundreds of faults in it. To defend Shankaracharya, however, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya presented unlimited opposition. The Bhattacharya presented various types of false arguments with pseudo-false logic and tried to defeat his opponent in many ways. However, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu refuted all these arguments and established his own conclusion. So, we've been to one of the main places of Shankaracharya in Sringeri Math in Karnataka. A very beautiful place and well kept by the monks, followers of Sripad Shankaracharya. And above the main temple, there's Tattamasi or Aham Brahmasmi. You are Brahman, I am Brahman. You are that thing that is everything. This is their Mahavakya. So Mahavakya means the essential statement of the Vedas. So Mahaprabhu was saying, no, it's not Tattamasi that is the central saying of the Vedas, it's Omkar. So because Shankaracharya has changed the central statement of the Vedas, he's incorrect. He's done something. He's presented something that wasn't true. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, after hearing Mahaprabhu, he tried to argue with him, and he was brilliant. He was an incredible scholar, but Mahaprabhu always defeated him and established the philosophy of Achintya Veda Veda. So, any questions or comments? Young Krishnadas, do you have any questions? Not even a little one? A very little one?
What is Omkar?
What is Omkar? Have you ever heard the devotees say Om? When?
I haven't heard them before.
There's so many Vedic mantras that the devotees say. They start with Om, and when you're doing a fire sacrifice, they use Om, because Om means Radha and Krishna and the Jiva. Radha, Krishna and the soul. The eternal souls. So this is the main statement in the Vedic literature. Before devotees give Bhagavatam class, they say, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So you've heard the devotees say Om, yes? And
he knows the prasadam prayers, so he says Om too.
Do you know the prasadam prayers that have Om in it?
Nama Om, Vishnu Padaya.
Okay. We say it to Prabhupada, Om Purnam Adaha Purnamidam. Everything is perfect and complete. What other? Om Ajnana Timirandas, yeah. Any other ones?
Om Bhu Bhuva.
Huh?
Om Bhu Bhuva.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Yeah. Yeah. Om Tad Vishnu Parama Param Tata from the Rig Veda. So many prayers have Om in them. And it means, and it's Om, you have to listen. Otherwise you have to listen, okay? Even though your father told you the question to ask. You still have to listen to the answer because it came from your mouth. Okay? So Om it's like a bija mantra. You know what bija means?
A seed.
Yes. So it's the seed. The bija mantras are very, very powerful. And the seed of the entire mantra, or the seed of the mantra, has the entire mantra in it and the potency of the whole mantra in it. Because if it has Radha and Krishna and the jiva, and one may think, where's the material world? And where is the material world? Krishna, expansion, Balaram's expansion, Sankarshan, Mahasankarshan, then Mahavishnu, and the material world comes from the breathing of Mahavishnu. Always glance at the material energy. What question do you have? Who has a question? Yes.
You mentioned there is no form for the Om.
There's no
Form for the Om.
Did I say there's no form for the Om?
It's a sound form, but it has no actual form for it.
No. It's the form of the Lord in sound. It's the form of the Lord in sound. Not that it doesn't have a form. Its form is in sound, basically, and it can be written, of course, but it's the form in sound. So sound also has form, but it's not a visual form. Did you want to?
No. Thinking the Om has got the form, and according to the seeker.
According to the
seeker.
Yeah.
Like Saivites or Saktas or Vaishnavites or Bhaktas, they all see their cherished deity.
Because Om includes everything. It's absolute truth.
Complete knowledge.
Yes.
Can you help us understand what Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is feeling after speaking for 8 days and now being defeated time and time again by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
Well, by the end of the chapter, we'll hear his feeling, and there's a psychological phrase called cognitive disequilibrium, which means you have a concept of reality. And everyone has a concept of reality. A child has a concept of reality. Even a bug has a concept of reality. So when one, and this describes to some degree of what people go through in at different times in their life. When you're confronted with something, that doesn't fit into your concept of reality, you try to fit it in, but it just simply doesn't fit in. And then what happens is called cognitive disequilibrium, which means your concept falls apart. And if you're fortunate, it will rebuild itself in a bigger, better form that includes the new experience that you had. So you've grown in that way. Conceptually, you've grown. Your understanding of things has grown. But it also entails the cognitive disequilibrium, where your current concept falls apart, and that's very unpleasant. Very unpleasant. But it's required to grow, even in a material sense. It's like when a child, in what math are you studying right now? Mathematics? Be careful, I'm going to ask you next, you have to listen. What math are you studying? I didn't mean it.
Like what subject inside math or?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, algebra.
Algebra. So when there's X's and Y's, right,
Yeah.
in algebra. So maybe before you studied algebra, you were thinking it's 1 and 1 is 2, and just only numbers. But suddenly there's letters put in there. And you have to change your understanding of what mathematics is. Follow me? That means your old understanding, which was limited to some degree, has to break and fall apart to get a bigger understanding, which includes X's and Y's and etc., etc. Is that clear? So this is something that, like, we all become comfortable in our understandings, our current understandings. But our current understandings are incomplete. Naturally they're incomplete, they're limited. They're limited. So that means we have to grow to become a lover of Krishna, where we see everything in relationship with Krishna, and we see Krishna in everything, and seeking everything that is meant for him, and our consciousness is filled with love of Krishna in specific ways, not even in a general way. Then that means we're going to have to undergo many stages of cognitive disequilibrium. But we'll have to do that anyway, even if we don't have a spiritual goal, because we naturally, for example, think that here I am today, and tomorrow will be basically like today. I'll be there, I'll be moving and doing what I want to do and doing what I have to do, and tomorrow will be like today. And then one day we may find out, and one day it will happen to everyone, that this is our last day on earth. And then our whole concept of reality, that I'm here in this body forever, it crumbles. And it'll be terrifying, actually terrifying, unless we can assimilate that concept that my body is going to leave this, is going to turn back into dust. But I'm eternal. There was one, I don't know if he's passed away yet, but there was this one, not young man, but not an old man. He joined the Krishna consciousness movement, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago or something, I don't know. And in Washington, D.C. in the United States, and he was, and then somehow or another he got cancer. And I saw a little video of him chanting, but he had told Satchidananda Maharaj, who went to visit him, that now is the time I have to apply the philosophy to my life. I have to do it. So he wasn't afraid. And I was so appreciative of this. He wasn't afraid. It was the time to apply the philosophy of Krishna consciousness to his life, to practice, fully practice what he's been telling others about and accepting. So there's probably a word for it, but he subsumed his new concept was far greater than his previous concept. But we have to go through a period of cognitive disequilibrium. So I'm sure you studied that in different terms perhaps, but you have to face it. Yes?
Is cognitive disequilibrium the same as cognitive dissonance?
No. But I mean, what they mean by your concepts of life and who I am, who we are, who I am, it falls apart because something has come into your experience that doesn't fit into your concept. Follow that? So then your old concept isn't big enough to include that. So your old concept starts shaking and falls apart. So if you're fortunate, you rebuild a new concept that includes that new experience that's come into your life. Sometimes people don't have that ability, and then their brain, the mind stops working properly like that. So at difficult times, we have to hold tightly to Krishna, very tightly to Krishna, more tightly even, and let him reassemble our consciousness so it's bigger and more developed and more pure and more devotional. So cognitive dissonance, I don't know the technical, but it would mean like a stage when something doesn't fit in. And then
when you can't rebuild.
Huh?
That'd be when you can't rebuild your reality, you become dissonant.
And people rebuild their reality into worse realities sometimes. Sometimes, they say that something happens when you're a child, you think you're always protected and everything is perfect and I'm always going to be protected, and something horrible happens in your family, and some people build their reality in a less way, and now I can't trust anything or anyone anymore. Or maybe, it's a cruel world, I'm going to have to be even more cruel. So we want to be guided by Shastra as our concepts, life concepts, as we meet our fate, as we go through life. What do you think of this, Mohan? Is it understandable to you? What do you think about it? This type of discussion?
What do you mean by that?
What do you think about it?
I think it's a little unnerving when you think about it. And it's a little unnerving, more unnerving when it happens. But once you've gone over the rapids, the white water rapids, then you feel a tremendous relief, even though you still might have a few more things to go through.
Relief because your consciousness is bigger. Yeah. So if somehow or another, due to mercy or due to our fortune, we actually had full trust in Krishna, and I've been reading the Prabhupada. I've been reading in Shastra to this point that a devotee, he accepts whatever is happening. He sees Krishna in it. Tateyanu kampam susan miksamano. If our concept of life was so big that whatever happened to us, the difficult things, the easy things, the good things, the bad things, if we actually saw this is somehow or another, I may not see it right now, this is Krishna. Krishna's mercy, Krishna's kindness. What a free, anxiety-free life we would have. We can't make believe we have that depth of realization when we don't, because it will be shattered by experience. But in that way, one can live in this world, Vishvapurna Sukhayate, free from all anxiety. Knowing that he's protected, just like our friends over here, they're not anxiety about where their food comes from, where this comes from, where their clothing comes from, where their shelter comes from. And sometimes maybe they get chastised, but they know that this is another form of mercy. Does your father sometimes chastise you? Yeah, and you say, oh, he's so kind to me, he's trying to correct me out of the depth of his love. Yes? No, what? Krishnadas does, yeah? You always listen to what your mother and father say, and that, yes, see.
Except for when having prasadam.
He finishes all his prasadam now, yeah? Maybe, see, that's an example. You have to eat all your prasadam, but I don't feel like it. But your parents know that for your body to grow strong and healthy, that you need to eat a sufficient amount, not only sweets and candies and things like that. So even though you're Gujaratis and naturally likes to eat only sweets, but is he a sweet eater?
Started from last year.
Okay, he's growing into his true identity. Before it was in seed form only.
There has been a massive transformation in the last 1 year. From no sweet to too much sweet.
We were wondering why he's so sweet. He's too sweet. But when, say, if your parents tell you must eat, and they get strong with you, you may feel like eating, or you may not feel like eating, but you eat, and sometimes we don't like being told what to do. But because we know that those who are telling us have our interest in mind and that they wouldn't do anything to harm us, they only want our welfare, then we very happily do what they say. Yes?
Yes.
Starting tomorrow. Kal. Maybe.
Sometime.
Okay. Any questions? You had a question, or last question?
What's the difference between Omkar and Hare Krishna?
In Hare Krishna, you could say none. And also the seed mantras of the Klim, of the Gayatri mantras. You could say it's Omkar, you could say it's Krishna, the sound of Krishna's flute. You could say it's the Hare Krishna mantra. And then you might ask, why don't we just chant Om? Were you thinking that? I was wondering if you wanted to just chant Om. So, one thing is that our great acharyas, we follow in their footsteps. And Mahaprabhu told devotees to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. And there's so many incredible meanings of the Hare Krishna mantra. And also it differentiates the practices of the Vaishnavas from those of the Mayavadis. Especially Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he wanted to make very strong distinctions between the practices of the Mayavadis and the practices of the Vaishnavas, of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Because he didn't want the people to think that that his followers were Mayavadis. Did you have a question? You were just stretching. Okay. Thank you very much. Sri Caitanya Caritamrta ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj ki jai.